everyone. So we did a design evaluation for the Delta Farmers Institute, and so we were looking at the Delta Farmers, the website that they have that they use for irrigation. And go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the background of the Delta Farmers Institute and what they actually do and why they use their organization, their interface, and then we're going to go through the interface and the methods that we use to find some problems and solutions for them. And starting with our background, so our goal was to understand the areas that the Delta Farmers Institute website could improve and how they currently are providing high value to their existing customers. And so 3 important things to remember to discuss for the Delta Farmers Institute that is important is the geography challenge, the water salinity, and the different irrigation periods. So the Delta Farmers, because we're located in Vancouver, it's a very unique problem that the Delta Farmers have where their water actually comes from the ocean and then it goes into the rivers. So if you're a farmer inland, you do not have a salt problem in your water. But because they get their water from right near the ocean, they have this salinity challenge. So that is the main reason that they have this interface, is to figure out how much salt is there in the water, can I use it for my crops? And so this is called water salinity, and high water salinity can kill crops, and they want to see exactly like the tolerance level for the salinity. And it's also important to note that the farmers have different irrigation periods. So there's periods in time where they're checking the website every single day to be like, can I irrigate, can I irrigate, can I irrigate? And then they don't look at it again for months, and then they come back.
Right, so for the interface, right now the farmers have access to the website here, which shows the irrigation levels on the bottom, and then the map of the Delta District where all of the farms are at. And then this page, it just shows the tide levels and then the graphs provided with also the locations as well. Then for this page, which isn't really used that much, you're just able to see where it's specifically at, and then just the water level and the discharge.
Yeah, and then so we used 3 methods: surveys, heuristic evaluation, and interviews to gather our data. So we chose these 3 methods because to capture a thorough understanding of our participants and of who's actually using the website. We did a lot with interviews though, primarily. And so we started with a survey. We created a pre-questionnaire survey to gain data about the demographic of who we were meeting with, and this was primarily farmers in between the ages of 40 and 60, usually Caucasian and primarily male, but there were about 30% were female farmers. And then we also conducted a heuristic evaluation. This is what the team did on our own, and against Nielsen-Norman's 10 general principles for interaction design. So we just kind of checked what's working, what's not, based on this criteria. And then we also did interviews. We only interviewed with 4 participants, but they were very in-depth interviews. We went into the field, we talked to them, recorded, we had long conversations with them and took photos. And we were looking for our heuristic evaluation. We were kind of looking for to understand the efficiency, memorability, and errors. Those were our 3 main focuses of the design of what we were looking for. And first, we looked at a couple of things we found. First, visibility of system status. So we found a lot of the graphs have it takes a long time for them to load, and there's little feedback whether this is an error or if it's just a computer problem. And then we also found that there were too many interactions required to find the information that the farmers were looking for. So they're looking for specific information all the time, and they have to go through 4 steps to get to it. And then finally, because users have to cross-reference data across multiple parts of the interface, it's kind of difficult for them to recall what's happening. And yeah, so the heuristic evaluation kind of confirmed that there were issues in efficiency, memorability, and recovery from these errors.
So to gain a kind of deeper understanding for the audience that we were dealing with, we dealt with field interviews that kind of gave us a better understanding of the farmers and just have a conversation with them and see the farms that we're going to study about and why salinity is very important to them. And so the different approaches that we used was an informal and a controlled approach to do the interviews. I'll talk more about each of them, and then we had specific questions that we asked to kind of help control the study because it was very difficult to keep the reliability together. So for our informal approach, we decided to go to the farms and talk to the participants one-to-one. So by allowing them to take us through their farms and just allowing the information to flow equally as easily. So we did that through learning more about the irrigation systems for this particular farmer and learning more about how he conducts his salinity monitoring every single year. The more controlled approach involved us having a sit-down conversation. Having a sit-down conversation with the different farmers, so seeing how they interact with the website, seeing how they interact with the different interfaces that they use, so which phones that they use or laptops if that's what they're using, and the opinions that they had about the layout and what they feel like should be improved or recommendations for future iterations of the website. And so some of the questions we asked were, what are their frustrations, what are the most helpful information so we can prioritize what information shows up first, opinions on the website's layout and the organization, recommendations for future processes of how to do the salinity monitoring for them. And so a little bit about our participants. We had formal participants around 35 to 65 in the age range. All participants were farmers in the Delta Spit, and they all work in different agricultural sectors, so like from growing peppers to growing potatoes, cranberries, etc. So our first farmer was a well-established farmer. He had his own irrigation system and water pump, so he was able to monitor his own salinity and also pump water to his farms in case of anything. Most farmers do not have that ability. They all depend on the Delta community to help with the water pumping. The second participant was more on potatoes and onions and other types of vegetables of a grower. He had his own pipes and own pipeline system of how to package his products, so he mostly dealt with the tertiary sector of packaging his products. The third participant was a more well-established farmer as well. He had multiple phases of greenhouses where he grew green peppers and different types of peppers. He also had his own irrigation system, but he also dealt with Delta to be able to pump water into his irrigation system. And the final participant was more lower in the lower area of the Delta Spit and had the most challenge with salinity. He was a potato and pumpkins and beets growth farmer. So he dealt with water and farms in like a very wide specific area. So also knowing how they look was a good way for us to go by with that as a group. And yeah.
So for the results, we pretty much divided the categories into positive, neutral, and negative feedback. So for the first one, it's real-time monitoring. These were one of the suggestions we wanted to make for the new application that we tried to pitch. So they want to see like alerts on the home screen of the iPhone. Then the second one was prediction and analysis. So they want to see historical data on the weather or the tides of for the farms. And the third one was the customization. So you're able to put which farms you want to see on the front page of the screen and just change the units to whatever measurements you want.
So I'll talk a little bit about reliability and reliability in the data. So because our data came in the form of just responses from interview questions, we can't really measure for like a reliability constant like we can with like quantitative data. So what we could do is do kind of structured or semi-structured interviews and kind of have our questions vary so that we get responses that are appropriate for each situation, each farmer, because it does vary depending on what they're growing, how they're growing it. And then for recording methods, we use both writing and electronic recording. And so for this course, we were able to make some recommendations, and we made recommendations through a UI app, which I'll show in the next slide. And the reason why we chose a mobile app is because this seemed like a natural next step for DFI, because they've been in the talks about making a mobile app, and also because farmers actually use an app more than an actual desktop. So it was just easier access for them altogether. And we use insights from like both our heuristic evaluation and our field study to inform our design decisions. So this is the landing screen where they're welcomed with their favorites of which pumps they want to monitor. So they can adjust which pumps they want to view, which pump, and that would make sense depending on where their location is. Or some farmers have multiple farms and they're distributed across Delta, so they might have some in different locations as well. And then they can also click into that and check salinity history and also the current salinity levels. There's also a map feature in the app, and it's just to show where they are located within Delta. And this was included because it was very highly requested from the farmers of active monitoring and notifications when they've reached a certain threshold, because during harvesting seasons or during irrigation seasons, they would kind of keep checking their phone for the right salinity, and then they would go quickly to go turn on the pump if it's at the right salinity. But with like a notification system or something to notify them, they don't have to keep checking the website. And to conclude our presentation, in general, our field study let us gain really valuable insight to how farmers use salinity monitoring, and we gained valuable insight to talk to Peak Hydromet, which is the client we were working with that works with Delta Farm Institute. We were talking to Peak Hydromet about what kind of valuable UI implementations would really help the farmers. So yeah, that concludes our presentation.
Can you go back to your UI slide? Just interested, like, is there, you look at precedents when you considered like the circular graphs? Like, was there a reason why the bands are thicker?
Yeah. So there were precedents, yes, but like these are just to show like the dials. I mean, the bands, maybe it looks small here, but when you like open it up, it's okay on the phone. So maybe it just look a little small. But also I should maybe note that like this whole project wasn't really focused on delivering a UI. It was more like focused on giving them suggestions or giving them a research report to work with to potentially make a UI, and the UI was sort of seen as giving them like just giving them kind of like a first step to help them move forward.
I don't know anything about UI.
That's okay.
But, so what I love about this is I have two questions. One, how many of you had met a farmer before this?
Actually, me.
Yeah?
I think, well,
No.
she has, but
My,
yeah, we haven't.
yeah.
I'm just so interested in the four of you talking about farmers, and I'm like, oh, look at diverse farmers, like cranberries, green peppers, so I guess my question is, in your design process, like, what did the four of you, like, is there something that you took away that you didn't know before about farming, or the land, or the something that's not even UI based, but maybe has informed the way you are gonna move through your processes after that? I'm just really interested in that.
I think we learned like the importance of when you design, you gotta design for real people, because since I think we forget this a lot when we're designers, but for us, it's like, okay, we don't know anything about farming. Like, we know that it's important, but we don't know about it. So when we go there, then it's like, okay, like, we have to actually see what these people do, how they do their farm, like how they actually farm. And farming has a lot of, some of this farming can be very, very high tech. And it's like, we wouldn't think of it as high tech, but it's like super high tech in agriculture. And so that was something that we learned about how, like, the variety in technology across agriculture. And then I think most of us had never really visited a farm before, or not in this sense where we had farmers speaking to us for an hour being like, this is where I grow my potatoes, this is how I move them into the truck, this is what I do. So
I think also, like, for me at least, like, when people talk about like being a designer, you have to be like empathetic and all that, and that's a big part of it. But I think learning more about what they did and how they struggle with like poorly designed technology in the farming industry, like, it makes you even more like feel even more empathetic, or like think even more empathetically about how they're using technology in like to make farming better, right? So
Some of the stuff pretty bad that you saw, or
well, like the website was pretty bad for monitoring salinity, right? So.
in general, agriculture does not have, they get a lot of funding from the government, but they get funding for their technology. And so all of the anything online that they use is generally very terrible, because there's barely any marketing that goes into it, because they just sell products that are specific to other customers' needs. But usually the products are, the UI and related design aspects are very, very low quality, because they're just hacked together. So
I think it's really great with the whole app and the notification on the salinity level, because that's like bang on. I just wondered, from the perspective of, like, were you able to go to the DFI website itself to find out statistics about where the usage is from outside, like, you know, rather than the end user? And because I was wondering, you were saying there's some areas where people had to click in, you know, a number of web pages to get to something. I wonder if maybe one of the recommendations might be something like having a quick link resource right on the home page for those areas where people would, you know, want to click into it. For example, on either the app or the website. And I just wondered if DFI also allowed you to get some data from themselves on the website.
More so like told us, like, this is where like people usually are, like this, rather than gave us like actual numbers.
Yeah, and I think DFI mostly gave us more agency in terms of looking through the website and seeing how we can implement from the end user perspective. Because if it's more of an expert field that they're the ones that are using it, how can we actually improve it for them? And so your idea of the recommendations of making it easier for them to just click on one homepage, I think one of our farmers, his son coded one for him so that he's able to just open the website on his homepage, and we're like, well, that's what we're here to do, guys. So yeah, so it was kind of pretty cool. So yeah, that's a good recommendation.
the other one was that your idea of, oh, if maybe there's a little resource at the top of the page or something. The thing is, this website is actually very, very small. Like, kind of what we showed you is mostly like pretty much it. Like, that's what it is. And so we were finding that the farmers were saying, oh, we can't remember where things are, and yet they use this website so often that we were like, okay, this is a problem. If they use it all the time and they cannot remember where to go, then
That's why we kind of suggested like a customization page on the like app, so like they could just start whatever they want and just easily access whatever information they need.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome Wilbert up next for the final presentation from this session. They're going to be talking or presenting their project Vancouverism.